Mr. Speaker, to the Associate Minister of Justice, does he agree with all of the government's statements and actions in respect of the Treaty Principles Bill, and if so, why?
Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable David Seymour.
I was tempted to answer the way that member did when asked a similar question once. He said, yeah, at the time. But this government is united in its purpose. You might even say it has kotahitanga. And so, yes, I do agree with its statements. For instance, I agree with Cabinet's decision to progress the Treaty Principles Bill, a bill that would enshrine in law the principle everyone is equal before the law and is entitled to the equal protection and equal benefit of the law without discrimination. Everyone is entitled to the equal enjoyment of the same fundamental human rights without discrimination. Oh, yes, I agree with that.
Mr. Speaker, can I ask the Minister, does he agree with Prime Minister Christopher Luxon, who says we've never been open-minded? We've always said there's no intention, no commitment, no support for it beyond first reading, and if not, why not?
Well, for the simple reason that the government has no policy on a second reading. It may well be that that's the position of the National Party, and I respect that, because in our coalition we work together professionally. We have areas where we disagree as parties, and that's why we're in different parties.
Mr. Speaker, does the Minister agree with the Honourable Shane Jones, who said there's no ambiguity, no doubt that the Treaty Principles Bill would not be passed into law, and if not, why has he decided to continue with it?
Well, first of all, I hear the Honourable Shane Jones challenging the member for a source, but I repeat that the government doesn't have a position on that. Political parties and their leaders may do, but the government does not.
Willie Jackson.
Mr. Speaker, will the Minister stop wasting everyone's time and resources and kill the bill now, given that no one in the coalition government supports him? The religious fraternity doesn't support him. The political experts don't support him, and Māori certainly don't support it. And if not, why not?
Well, Mr. Speaker, could I have permission for a longer answer? There's a lot to address there. First of all, idea...
Permission's not granted.
Fair enough.
If I ask you to be,
Mr. Speaker, he mentioned
be as brief as you normally are,
he mentioned the religious fraternity, and I hear God loves a trier. Mr. Speaker, starting with one group of people, Labor supporters, when asked, do support the principles in the bill, 62% of them. So there's one group. He said Māori don't support them. Since when did Willie Jackson get to say what every single Māori person thinks? In fact, usually when you stereotype a group of people by race and say they all think the same, that's actually racism. We oppose that kind of thinking. Why are we advancing this bill? Because I believe that this country deserves to be able to have a say about its constitutional future and don't need to be cut down or told they're not allowed an opinion.
Speaker.
Parmjeet Palmer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the Minister, why is the Treaty Principles Bill needed?
Mr. Speaker, for the very simple reason that this Parliament in 1975, when almost no current members were here, introduced the Treaty of Waitangi Act, which said that the treaty has principles. For 50 years, this Parliament has been silent on what those principles are, and into that void has emerged, according to the Court of Appeal, a partnership between races. And I simply believe that there is no credible constitutional basis or successful model where people have different rights based on their background and their ancestry because they're in a partnership between races.
Mr. Speaker.
Willie Jackson.
Mr. Speaker, does the Minister stand by his statement that, well, I think the debate will be fun? And does he think it will be fun to see racially charged rhetoric and possible civil unrest? And if so, is ACT Party supporter Matthew Hooton correct that the true motive for the Treaty Principles Bill is to, quote, to inflame hatred in New Zealand?
Mr. Speaker, it's a funny and desperate day when the Labor Party is quoting Matthew Hooton. But Mr. Speaker, you know, Willie Jackson says he's my supporter. Willie Jackson should be very careful, because if I was Willie Jackson, I wouldn't want politicians to have to be responsible for all of their supporters. Mr. Speaker, actually, I think the debate can be fun. I think it can be civil, and I think he underestimates New Zealanders' ability to have a civilised and constructive discussion about their future. But if there's anything that's been divisive, if there's anything that has led to racial tension, it is the previous government's belief that each of us exist in a partnership between races with our role in this society decided by our ancestry. That's what was divisive, and that's what this government is putting to bed.
Palmer.
Speaker, thank you, Mr. Speaker. What's wrong with the current interpretation of the treaty as a partnership, and how would the treaty principles bill change this interpretation?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the term partnership does not appear in the treaty. It does not align with either version of the original text. It's a relatively recent invention of the courts in response to this House saying that the treaty had principles. And there just isn't a workable model. And this is the challenge for people like Willie Jackson heckling away. Where is the successful model of a society which divides people by their ancestry with a different constitutional race to play based on the history of their family? There isn't one, but there are so many examples of states that have failed because of that exact thinking, and so many examples of good people that Willie Jackson should join who have campaigned for universal human rights.
Mr. Speaker. Thank you. To the Minister, what support has he seen for the treaty principles bill?
Well, Mr. Speaker, widespread support. In fact, I'll hold it up again. 62% of Labor supporters, according to one poll that I've seen, and it's a warning to those in the Labor Party that as they grapple for an identity in the wake of their crippling loss of 2023, they must really think what are their true values, and if they look in their constitution, they'll see that equal rights is part of the Labor Party constitution.